Hi everyone, in this video we're gonna tackle about the plant reproductions. All living organisms are capable of giving birth to young ones, which are either exactly same or somewhat similar to them. The process of giving to an offspring known as reproduction. Reproduction is known to produce again. It is a process by which new individuals are generated. Reproduction among living things can be accomplished in one or two ways: the sexual reproductions and asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is the fusion of male and female gametes. It is usually happen in the sexual organs of flowering plants which are contained in their flower. Sexual reproduction starts with pollination, which is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the flower. The male gametes of a flowers are carried in pollen grains and the female gametes are carried in the ovules. Most flowers have both male and female parts in one flower. Such flowers are called bisexual. They prefer self-pollinations. On the other hand, some species have separate male and female flower. Such flowers are called unisexual flowers. These flowers require cross-pollination. In summary, self-pollination occurs when pollen falls from the anther into the stigma of the same flowering plants. On the other hand, cross-pollination is the transfer of pollen to another plant of the same species. In the diagram, you can see the A and the B, which is example of self-pollinations, while letter C is example of cross-pollination. But you are wondering, what is asexual reproduction? Asexual reproduction is a type of reproduction that produces identical offspring from a single parent. The fusion of male and female gametes are not required. We know that plants have roots, stems, and leaves. These parts are called vegetative parts. It is known as the type of reproduction in plants from its vegetative part or specialized reproductions. Vegetative reproduction have different methods: the cutting, grafting or budding, and time culture.
For this video, I will discuss all about the seed dispersal. So the seed dispersal is a mechanism by which plant seeds are transported to a new site for germination and the establishment of new individuals. So my question arises, how are these seeds fixed in the soil? Do they always get rooted near the plant from where they are arise, or sometimes at distance as well? So seeds can be dispersed to nearby or distant places as well as thanks to the process of dispersal. So the process by which seeds are dispersed to distant places by various agents is known as dispersal of seeds. Seeds are transferred to new various places by factors such as the wind, water, explosion, and animals. So these agents make the process of dispersal or seeds easier. So let me ask a question. Tell me one thing, what do we do with the seeds after eating juicy fruit? We generally throw away the seeds, right? Yes, that is how seeds from a plant growing in one area reach a completely different area. Plants are even benefited with the seed dispersal by animals to understand this. Like for example, the birds. Birds also relish on the juicy fruits that have seeds within many cases. The seeds of the plant are tough to germinate if planted directly in the soil. Now, if such a fruit is consumed by a bird, when the seed does not get digested in the bird's body, and this is thrown away directly. However, the seed carries often on a bit due to the chemical activity. So as the seeds passes through the birds, it gets dissolved, and when it drums in the ground and it gets rotted, it becomes easy for the seed to germinate. This is how animals can help in far and may dispersal of seeds. So what will happen if the seeds from the parent plant get planted near it? So the parent plant would severely affect the growth and development of both the plants, and why so? So the two will start to completing for sunlight and water, and that is the reason why seed dispersal is extremely useful for plants.
Fertilization in flowering plant. In this video, you will learn about the process of fertilization in flowering plants. Fertilization in flowering plant is defined as the fusion of male gametes carried by pollen with the female gamete present in the ovule to form a diploid zygote which later develop into an embryo. It may be interesting to learn that fertilization in plant is known as double fertilization, as two fusion occur in the embryo sac instead of one. These fusion are called syngamy and triple fusion. On reaching the stigma, the pollen grain containing two nuclei germinates to produce the pollen tube. The pollen tube grows down into the style, deriving nutrition from it. The generated nucleus and vegetative nucleus of the pollen grain move to the lower end of the pollen tube. Here, the generative nucleus divides mitotically into two male gametes or sperms. The vegetative or tube nucleus of pollen grain is responsible for the growth of the pollen tube. The vegetative nucleus degenerates after reaching the ovule. The pollen tube at this stage with the vegetative nucleus and two male gametes grows down into the ovary. The entry of the pollen tube into the ovule through the micropyle, chalaza, and tegument is known as porogamy, chalazogamy, and mesogamy. Respectively, porogamy is the most common out of these. After the pollen tube enters the ovule, it discharges the two male gametes. It carries into the synergids of the embryo sac. This causes the synergid cells to rupture, thus leading to the fusion of male gamete with an egg nuclei. Due to this fusion, a diploid zygote is formed which gives rise to an embryo. This process is known as generative fertilization or syngamy. After the double fertilization, the ovaries start to swell. And develops into a fruit with seeds. In this video, you'll learn that fertilization in flowering plant is the process of fusion of the male and the female gamete. Fertilization in plant is known as double fertilization, as two fusion, syngamy, and triple fusion occur. Compatible pollen grains produce a pollen tube. After reaching the ovary, the pollen tube enters the ovule via micropyle, chalaza, or integuments. After entering the ovule, the pollen tube enters the synergids and ruptures it. The pollen tube releases two male gametes in the synergid. One of the male gametes fuses with the egg nuclei to form a diploid zygote. This process of fertilization is known as syngamy. Another male gametes move towards the central cells and fertilizes with the two pollen nuclei. This process of fertilization is known as the triple fusion.